I think I didn't do anything wrong. Just let my ex crash at my place when he was in town. He slept in the same bed as me, but it wasn't like that. Now my husband's filed for divorce, and everyone's acting like I committed some crime. I never meant for things to get this far, but now all I have is a letter from his lawyer and an empty house. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in March. I remember the exact time because I was watching the late news, curled up on our beige sectional sofa in my pajamas, the pink cotton set Simon had bought me for Christmas. He was already in bed, reading one of his accounting journals like he did every night before sleep. "Eudora, who could that be?" Simon called from upstairs, his voice carrying that familiar note of concern. My husband was always worried about something: late-night visitors, unexpected expenses, whether our 9-year-old daughter Leila was eating enough vegetables. I padded to the front door in my slippers, peering through the peephole of our suburban Houston home. The porch light illuminated a familiar face, older now, but still handsome in that effortless way that had first attracted me 13 years ago. "Adrian?" I opened the door, genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here?" Adrian Fox stood on my doorstep, with a small overnight bag slung over his shoulder, his dark hair slightly messed from travel. He worked as a traveling consultant now, something involving software implementations for manufacturing companies. We'd reconnected on Facebook a few months ago, just casual messaging about old times and mutual friends from college. "Hey, Eudora. I'm so sorry to bother you this late. My hotel booking got screwed up. Some conference in town has everything booked solid. I tried calling, but your phone went straight to voicemail." He looked genuinely apologetic, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "I know this is weird, but could I possibly crash on your couch tonight? I'll be gone first thing in the morning." I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds. Simon appeared at the top of the stairs in his navy blue pajamas, his thinning brown hair sticking up at odd angles. "Who is it, honey?" he asked, squinting down at us. "It's Adrian Fox. You remember from college? He needs a place to stay tonight. Hotel mix-up." I turned back to Adrian. "Of course you can stay. Come on in." Simon's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, then something that looked almost like panic. He came down the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. "Adrian," he said, extending his hand with forced politeness. "It's been, 5 years? 6, actually, since your housewarming party." Adrian shook Simon's hand, and I noticed how Simon's grip seemed tighter than necessary. "I really appreciate this, man. I'll be out of your hair by 7 a.m. "The couch pulls out," Simon said, his voice carefully neutral. "Eudora, could I speak with you in the kitchen for a moment?" I followed my husband into our small kitchen, where he immediately began fussing with the coffee maker for tomorrow morning, a sure sign he was agitated. "Eudora, I don't think this is a good idea," he whispered, his back to me, as he measured coffee grounds with unnecessary precision. "What's not a good idea? Helping an old friend?" I kept my voice low but couldn't hide my irritation. "Simon, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Your ex-boyfriend shows up at midnight needing a place to stay, and I'm paranoid for thinking it's strange." "He's not my ex-boyfriend. He's just someone I used to date. That was over a decade ago. We're all adults here." I crossed my arms. "Besides, what kind of person would I be if I turned away a friend in need?" Simon turned around, his grey eyes searching my face. "The kind of person who respects her marriage. That's not fair." I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "I'm not doing anything wrong. He's sleeping on the couch, for God's sake." "Daddy? Mummy?" Lila's small voice came from the kitchen doorway. Our daughter stood there in her unicorn nightgown, her long brown hair tangled from sleep. I heard voices. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetie," I said quickly, kneeling down to her level. We just have a friend staying over tonight. Remember Adrian? He came to our barbecue a few years ago. Lila nodded sleepily. Uncle Adrian? The nickname made Simon flinch visibly. Adrian had always been good with kids, and Lila had taken to calling him uncle during his previous visits, the way children do with family friends. That's right, baby. He'll be sleeping on the couch tonight, then leaving in the morning. Now let's get you back to bed. I tucked Lila back into her bed, kissing her forehead and promising that everything was normal. When I returned downstairs, I found Simon and Adrian in the living room, engaged in stilted conversation about Adrian's work travels. The tension was thick enough to cut. I'll get you some blankets and pillows, I announced, heading to the linen closet. Actually, Adrian said, and something in his tone made both Simon and me look at him. I hate to be even more of an imposition, but I threw my back out pretty badly yesterday moving some equipment. Your couch looks comfortable, but I'm worried about sleeping on a pull-out. Would it be possible to use your guest room? Simon and I exchanged glances. We didn't have a guest room, just our bedroom, Lila's room, and Simon's small home office. We don't really have a proper guest room, Simon said carefully. The office has that old futon, I offered, though I knew it was even less comfortable than the couch. Adrian winced, touching his lower back. I'm really sorry to be difficult. Maybe I should just try to find another hotel, even if I have to drive to the airport. No, don't be ridiculous. The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Our bed is king-sized. You can sleep on one side, I'll take the other. Simon won't mind, will you, honey? The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Simon's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, then something that looked like resignation. I mind, he said quietly. I mind very much. Simon, that's ridiculous. We're all adults. Nothing's going to happen. Adrian's back is hurt and we're just helping a friend. I could hear my voice getting sharper. Don't make this into something it's not. What it is, Simon said, his voice still quiet but with an edge I rarely heard, is my wife inviting another man to sleep in our bed. A friend, Simon. A friend with a medical issue who needs help. Adrian held up his hands. Hey, I don't want to cause problems between you two. Maybe I should just... No, I said firmly. You're staying and you're sleeping in a real bed. Simon's just being... protective. The word protective came out sounding like an insult, and I saw Simon flinch again. Fine, he said after a long moment. Fine. I'll sleep in the office. You don't have to do that, I protested, but he was already heading upstairs. Yes, I do, he called back without turning around. An hour later, I lay in my king-sized bed with Adrian Fox beside me, both of us fully clothed and carefully maintaining space between us. Adrian wore a t-shirt and pajama pants I'd found in Simon's drawer. They were a little tight on him, but they worked. I could hear him breathing in the darkness, could smell his familiar cologne mixed with travel and stress. This is weird, isn't it? He whispered. A little, I admitted. But it's fine. We're just sleeping. Just sleeping, he agreed. From the office down the hall, I could hear Simon moving around, probably trying to get comfortable on that ancient futon. I felt a pang of guilt, but pushed it away. I was helping a friend. There was nothing wrong with that. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to find Adrian already gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter thanking us for our hospitality, and his coffee mug was washed and sitting in the dish drainer. Simon was in the shower, and Lila was still asleep. I checked my phone and found a text from my mother, Marjorie. Simon called me this morning. He seemed upset. Everything okay? Before I could figure out how to respond, my phone buzzed with another message. This one from Simon's mother, Amelia. Eudora, I don't know what happened last night, but my son is hurting. You need to come home to your family. Come home? I was home. I'd never left. I made coffee and toast, going through my normal morning routine, but everything felt slightly off-kilter. Simon came downstairs dressed for work, but didn't say good morning. He poured his coffee into a travel mug and headed for the door. Simon, wait. Can we talk about last night? He paused with his hand on the doorknob. What's to talk about? You made your choice. I didn't make any choice. I helped a friend. Right, a friend. He opened the door. I'll pick up Lila from school today. I'll be staying at my mother's tonight. Simon, that's ridiculous. You're being dramatic. But he was already gone, leaving me standing in my kitchen, with my coffee growing cold and a growing sense that something fundamental had just shifted in my life. I posted a story on Instagram later that morning, just a picture of my coffee cup with the caption, "Some people see drama where there's just kindness," and "No regrets, Lara, real friends." Within an hour, my best friend Heather had messaged me. Saw your story. You sure Simon's okay with whatever happened? He looked pretty shaken when I saw him at the gas station this morning. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. He'll be fine, just needs time to process. But as I sat in my empty house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trying to convince myself as much as anyone else. The marketing firm's office felt different when I walked in Wednesday morning. Maybe it was my imagination, but conversations seemed to pause when I passed, and I caught more than one set of eyes quickly looking away from me. Heather was already at her desk when I arrived, her red hair pulled back in its usual neat bun. We'd been friends since college, and had managed to land jobs at the same mid-sized marketing firm 3 years ago. She looked up when I approached, but her usual bright smile seemed forced. "Morning, Eudora. How's everything at home?" "Fine," I said, settling into my cubicle adjacent to hers. "Why wouldn't it be?" "Well, you did post that cryptic Instagram story yesterday, and then Simon seemed pretty upset when I saw him." "Simon's just being Simon. You know how he gets about anything that disrupts his routine." I powered up my computer and started going through emails, trying to project normalcy. "He'll get over it," but Heather didn't drop it. "What exactly happened? Your story made it sound like there was some kind of drama." I sighed and turned to face her. Adrian Fox was in town for work. His hotel booking got messed up, so I let him crash at our place. Simon's acting like I committed adultery or something. "Adrian Fox, isn't that your ex from college?" "We dated briefly, like 13 years ago. We're friends now. Adults can be friends, Heather." "Of course they can," she said carefully. "Where did he sleep?" The question hung in the air between us. I could lie, say he slept on the couch like originally planned. But I'd never lied to Heather before, and I didn't see why I should start now. In our bed, actually. He threw his back out and couldn't sleep on the pull-out couch. Heather's eyebrows shot up. "In your bed? With you in it?" "It's a king-size bed, Heather. There was plenty of room. Simon slept in his office." "Simon slept in his office," she repeated slowly. "And you don't see why he might be upset about that?" "I see why he might be initially surprised, but not why he's still angry about it. Nothing happened. We slept. That's it." Heather was quiet for a long moment, then turned back to her computer. "Okay, if you say so." But something in her tone suggested she didn't believe me, or at least didn't think I was seeing the situation clearly. The morning dragged on. I tried to focus on the Henderson Industries campaign we were developing, but I kept getting distracted by whispered conversations that seemed to stop when I approached. During my coffee break, I overheard Janet from accounting talking to someone on the phone. Can you imagine? In the same bed while her husband slept in another room. I mean, what did she think would happen? When Janet saw me, she quickly ended her call and busied herself with paperwork. The office gossip mill was clearly in full swing. At lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from Simon's brother Eli. "Eudora, you need to call Simon. He's talking about seeing a lawyer." A lawyer? Over one night of letting a friend sleep over? Simon was clearly having some kind of breakdown. I texted back, "Tell him to stop being dramatic. We can talk when he comes home." But Eli's response was immediate. "He's not coming home. Not until you acknowledge what you did." What I did, I helped a friend in need. When had basic human kindness become a crime? I tried calling Simon, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message. Simon, this is getting ridiculous. I understand you were surprised, but you're blowing this completely out of proportion. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults. He didn't call back. That afternoon, I attempted to call Simon's mother, Amelia, thinking maybe she could talk sense into her son. But she declined my call and immediately texted, I have nothing to say to you right now, Eudora. This was insane. Simon's whole family was acting like I'd burned their house down instead of showing hospitality to a friend. My own mother called around 3 p.m. Eudora, honey, Simon called me again. He sounds really upset. What exactly happened over there? Nothing happened, Mom. That's what's so frustrating about this whole situation. Adrian needed a place to stay. I helped him out, and now Simon's acting like I had an affair. Adrian, that's the boy you dated in college. Briefly, yes, but that was over a decade ago. We're just friends now. There was a pause. Honey, where did this friend sleep? I closed my eyes. In our bed. But Mom, before you start. In your marital bed. Eudora, what were you thinking? I was thinking that he had a back injury and needed a comfortable place to sleep. It's not like we were having sex, Mom. We were sleeping, fully clothed, on opposite sides of a king-sized bed. And where was Simon during all this? He chose to sleep in his office. He chose to, or you made him feel like he had to. The question stung because there was truth in it. Mum, whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of your marriage, sweetheart. And from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you made some questionable choices. Questionable choices? I helped a friend. You put another man's comfort over your husband's feelings. How did you think that was going to go over? After I hung up with my mother, I sat in my cubicle feeling increasingly frustrated and misunderstood. Everyone was acting like I'd committed some terrible sin, when all I'd done was show basic human decency. Heather approached my desk around 4 p.m. with a concerned expression. Eudora, can we talk? Privately? We went to the small break room, where Heather closed the door and turned to face me. I've been thinking about our conversation this morning, and I have to ask, are you sure nothing happened between you and Adrian? Of course I'm sure. What kind of question is that? It's the kind of question your best friend asks when she's worried about you, because from the outside this whole situation looks really bad. From the outside, maybe. But I know what happened, and what happened was nothing. Eudora, you slept in the same bed as your ex-boyfriend while your husband slept alone in another room. How is that nothing? Because nothing sexual or romantic happened. We slept, that's it. Heather studied my face for a long moment. Do you still have feelings for Adrian? No, I said immediately. We're friends, that's all. Then why didn't you insist he sleep on the couch or find another hotel? Because he was in pain and I'm not heartless. And it had nothing to do with wanting to spend time with him. Nothing to do with the fact that you've been messaging him on Facebook for months. I stared at her. How do you know about that? Because you've mentioned it. Several times. How Adrian reached out. How you've been catching up. How he's doing so well with his consulting business. You light up when you talk about him, Eudora. I do not light up. I'm just being friendly. Okay, Heather said, but her tone suggested she didn't believe me. But can you understand why Simon might see it differently? Simon's being jealous and controlling. Or Simon's being a husband who's concerned about his wife's relationship with her ex-boyfriend. I felt my temper flare. Since when do you take Simon's side over mine? Since you started making choices that could destroy your marriage and hurt your daughter. The mention of Lila hit me like a physical blow. Don't bring Lila into this. She's already in it, Eudora. She's the one who's going to suffer if you and Simon can't work this out. I left work early that day, too agitated to concentrate. When I got home, the house felt eerily quiet without Simon and Lila. I tried calling Simon again, but it went to voicemail. I was heating up leftover Chinese food for dinner when I noticed something was missing from the kitchen counter. Simon's spare house key, which he always kept in a small bowl by the coffee maker. He'd taken it. After dinner, I walked to the mailbox to get the mail, and found a legal-looking envelope mixed in with the bills and catalogues. My name was typed on the front, with a return address from Vane and Associates, attorneys at law. Vane. That was Eli's law firm. Inside was a formal letter on law firm letterhead. Dear Mrs. Vane, this letter serves as formal notice that our client, Simon Vane, is seeking legal counsel regarding the current state of his marriage. We strongly advise that you retain your own legal representation. Any further communication regarding this matter should be directed through appropriate legal channels. Sincerely, Eli Vane. Escazzo. I read the letter 3 times, each reading making me angrier. Simon was seriously involving lawyers over one night of hospitality. This was beyond dramatic. It was vindictive. I called Heather immediately. He sent me a lawyer letter, Heather, an actual lawyer letter, over nothing. Eudora, slow down. What kind of lawyer letter? I read it to her, my voice shaking with indignation. Oh, honey, Heather said when I finished. This is serious. It's serious because Simon's making it serious. He's the one escalating things. Maybe, or maybe he's protecting himself. Protecting himself from what? From his wife being kind to a friend. There was a long pause. Eudora, I think you need to really examine what happened and how it looks to other people. Because right now, it looks like you chose another man over your husband. That's not what happened. Isn't it? When push came to shove, when Simon expressed discomfort with the situation, you dismissed his feelings and did what you wanted anyway. I hung up on her. That night, I lay alone in my king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt too big and too quiet. I kept reaching for my phone to call Simon, but what would I say? That everyone was overreacting, that he was being unreasonable, because that's what I believed. I'd helped a friend, and now my entire world was falling apart because people couldn't handle a simple act of kindness. I fell asleep, clutching my phone, hoping Simon would call. He didn't. Friday evening, my mother suggested we all meet for dinner at Romano's, the family restaurant where we'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries for years. Maybe if we all sit down together, we can work this out, she'd said on the phone. Lila needs to see her parents trying to communicate. I agreed, hoping that Simon would be more reasonable in a public setting with both our families present. Surely he wouldn't want to air our private business in front of everyone. I arrived at Romano's at 6 p.m. sharp, wearing my best dress, the navy blue one that Simon always said brought out my eyes. I wanted to look put together, like a woman who had everything under control. Simon was already there, sitting at our usual large round table in the back corner. He wore a crisp white shirt and his good khakis, but there were dark circles under his eyes. Lila sat beside him, colouring on a kid's menu, and she looked up when she saw me. "Mummy." She jumped up and hugged me, and I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. At least my daughter was happy to see me. "Hi, baby, I missed you." I kissed the top of her head and looked at Simon over her shoulder. "Hi, Simon." "Eudora," he said with a polite nod, like I was an acquaintance rather than his wife. My mother arrived a few minutes later, followed by Simon's mother Amelia and his brother Eli. The greetings were strained. My mother hugged everyone warmly, but Amelia barely acknowledged me, and Eli gave me a curt nod. We ordered our usual dishes: chicken parmesan for me, lasagna for Simon, spaghetti and meatballs for Lila. The conversation was stilted, focused on safe topics like Lila's upcoming school play and the weather. "So," my mother said once our salads arrived, "I think we're all here because we care about this family and want to see you two work through whatever's happening." Simon cut his salad with mechanical precision. "Some things can't be worked through, Marjorie." "Simon," Amelia said, reaching over to pat his hand, "tell them what you told me." I felt my stomach clench. Maybe we shouldn't discuss private matters in front of Lila. "Lila should hear this," Eli said, speaking for the first time since we'd sat down. "She's going to be affected by the consequences of your choices." "My choices?" I set down my fork. What choices? Helping a friend? Is that what you're calling it? Amelia's voice was ice cold. Helping a friend? That's exactly what I'm calling it, because that's what it was. Simon finally looked directly at me. Tell them where Adrian slept, Eudora. The table went quiet. Even Lila stopped coloring and looked up at us. I don't see how that's relevant. Tell them. I felt heat creep up my neck. Adrian slept in our bed because he had a back injury and couldn't sleep on the couch. And where were you? Eli asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. I was in my own bed, in my own house. While your husband slept where? Amelia's voice could have frozen water. Simon chose to sleep in his office. I chose. Simon's voice was quiet but sharp. I chose to sleep in my office because my wife invited another man into our marital bed. Mommy, Lila said in a small voice, why is everyone angry? I knelt down beside her chair. We're not angry, sweetheart. We're just having an adult conversation. But Daddy's been crying, Lila said, and the words hit me like a slap. He cried at Grandma Amelia's house. I heard him. I looked at Simon, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw past his anger to the hurt underneath. But before I could process that fully, Amelia spoke again. Eudora, I've known you for 10 years. I watched you marry my son. I was there when Lila was born, and I've always tried to support your marriage. But what you did... She shook her head. I can't understand how you could be so thoughtless. Thoughtless? I was being kind. You were being selfish, Eli interrupted. You put your own desires above your family's well-being. That's not true. I didn't have any desires except to help someone in need. Really? Simon's voice was deadly quiet. Then explain the messages. My blood went cold. What messages? Simon pulled out his phone and began reading. Adrian, it was so great seeing you again. I keep thinking about old times. He looked up at me. You sent that Tuesday morning after he left. That's just being friendly. There's more. Simon scrolled through his phone. I hope your back is feeling better. Maybe next time you're in town, we can actually catch up properly. Just the two of us. The table was silent except for the clatter of dishes from other diners. I could feel everyone staring at me. Those messages don't mean anything, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. Don't they? Simon set his phone on the table. Because to me they sound like a woman making plans to see another man behind her husband's back. Simon, you're twisting everything. Am I? Then explain this. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his shirt pocket. This is a drawing Lila made at school yesterday. Her teacher asked the kids to draw their families. He unfolded the paper and placed it in the center of the table. It was a child's drawing in crayon. A house, 3 stick figures in a bed, and 1 stick figure in another room, looking sad. Tell them what you told your teacher about this picture, Lila, Simon said gently. Lila looked confused and a little scared. I drew our house. Mommy and Uncle Adrian were in the big bed, and Daddy was in the little room. The teacher asked why Daddy looked sad, and I said because he had to sleep by himself. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I stared at my daughter's drawing, seeing our family through her innocent eyes, and for the first time, I began to understand how this might look to other people. Lila, honey, I said carefully, you know nothing bad happened, right? We were just sleeping. I know, Mummy, but why couldn't Daddy sleep in the big bed too? It was such a simple question, but I didn't have a good answer. Not one that made sense to a 9-year-old anyway. Because sometimes grown-ups make complicated decisions, I said finally. Complicated, Amelia repeated. Is that what we're calling it? I felt my temper flare again. Yes, complicated. Because life is complicated, and sometimes you have to make difficult choices about how to help people. The only difficult choice here, Eli said, was the one you made to put another man's comfort above your husband's feelings. Simon's feelings were hurt, I get that. But he's blowing this completely out of proportion. Is he? My mother spoke for the first time since the conversation had turned serious. Eudora, honey, I've been listening to all of this, and I have to say, I'm having trouble understanding your reasoning too. I stared at my mother in shock. Mom, you're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of what's right, and what's right is putting your marriage and your family first. I didn't put anyone second. I just tried to help a friend. A friend who happens to be your ex-boyfriend, Amelia said. A friend you've been messaging privately for months. We haven't been messaging privately. It's just Facebook. Facebook that you didn't tell your husband about, Eli pointed out. Because there was nothing to tell. We were just catching up. Simon leaned forward. Eudora, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I've spoken to a lawyer. I have evidence of your messages with Adrian. I have receipts from the hotel he was supposed to stay at, which, by the way, wasn't actually booked up that night. I have documentation of everything that happened. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you don't start taking this seriously, if you don't start acknowledging what you've done to our family, I'm going to file for separation, and I'm going to seek full custody of Lila. You can't do that, I whispered. Actually, he can, Eli said. Adultery is grounds for divorce in Texas, and a pattern of putting another man before your family could be seen as detrimental to the child's well-being. I didn't commit adultery. We didn't have sex. Mommy, Leela said, her voice very small, what's adultery? The question hung in the air like a bomb. Here we were, discussing the dissolution of our family in front of our 9-year-old daughter, and I was the one who had brought us to this point. It's a grown-up word, baby, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Don't worry about it. But Lila was already withdrawing, sinking back in her chair and returning to her colouring with jerky, agitated strokes. This is what you've done, Amelia said quietly. This is what your kindness has cost. Your daughter is sitting here listening to her parents' marriage fall apart because you couldn't say no to another man. That's not fair. What's not fair, Simon said, standing up, is that my wife cared more about Adrian Fox's comfort than about her own family's stability. He pulled out his wallet and threw 2 20s on the table. I'm taking Lila home, to my mother's house, which is where we'll be staying until you decide whether you want to be married to me or keep chasing fantasies with your ex-boyfriend. Simon, wait, but he was already helping Lila gather her things. My daughter looked back at me with confused, worried eyes as Simon led her away from the table. Daddy's really sad, isn't he, Mummy? She said as they passed my chair. Yes, baby, he is. Are you going to fix it? I wanted to say yes, but the word stuck in my throat, because I still didn't know what I was supposed to fix. I still believed I'd done nothing wrong. I'm going to try, I said instead. After they left, I sat at the table with my mother, Amelia, and Eli, the remains of our family dinner growing cold around us. Eudora, my mother said gently, it's not too late to make this right. How? I asked. What am I supposed to do? Apologize for being kind to someone. You're supposed to apologize for hurting your husband, Amelia said. You're supposed to acknowledge that you made a mistake and figure out how to rebuild the trust you've broken. But I don't think I made a mistake. The 3 of them exchanged glances, and I saw something like pity in their eyes. Then God help you, Amelia said, standing up, because if you can't see what you've done wrong, I don't know how this marriage can be saved. She left, followed by Eli, who paused just long enough to say, The papers will be filed Monday if you don't come to your senses. I sat alone with my mother in the restaurant, where I'd celebrated so many happy occasions, surrounded by the wreckage of my family dinner. Mom, I said, am I crazy? Am I really the villain here? My mother was quiet for a long time. Honey, she said finally, I think you're a woman who's forgotten what matters most, and if you don't remember soon, you're going to lose everything. She kissed my forehead and left me sitting alone at the table, staring at my daughter's drawing and wondering how helping a friend had turned into the end of my world. Saturday morning, I woke up in my empty house with a splitting headache and a determination to fix this mess. Simon was being dramatic, but he was also hurting, and I needed to make him understand that his pain was based on a misunderstanding. I called him at 9 a.m. "We need to talk," I said when he answered. "I agree. Come to the house at 2 o'clock. "I am at the house, Simon. It's my house, too. I'm at my mother's house, and bring a lawyer if you have one." "A lawyer? Simon, this is ridiculous. We're married. We can work this out ourselves." "Can we? Because yesterday you still seemed to think you did nothing wrong." I took a deep breath. "I'm willing to acknowledge that I could have handled things better. I should have been more considerate of your feelings." "That's not an acknowledgement, Eudora. That's a non-apology." "Then what do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell the truth. About Adrian. About your relationship with him. About what really happened that night." "I've told you the truth." "No, you've told me your version of the truth. There's a difference." He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in frustration. At 2 p.m., I drove to Amelia's house in the suburbs, a modest ranch-style home where Simon had grown up. I could see Lila playing in the backyard through the kitchen window, and the sight of my daughter gave me hope. Surely Simon wouldn't want to put her through a custody battle. Amelia answered the door with a cold expression. "He's in the study," she said, stepping aside to let me in. The study was Simon's father's old office, lined with bookshelves and dominated by a heavy wooden desk. Simon sat behind the desk with a manila folder in front of him. Eli sat in a chair to his right, a legal pad in his lap. "Sit down, Eudora," Simon said, gesturing to the chair across from the desk. The formality of it all made me angry. "This is our marriage, Simon, not a business meeting." "Our marriage ended Tuesday night," he said calmly. "This is about the logistics of our divorce." "Don't say that, we can fix this." "Can we? Let's see." He opened the manila folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "Let's start with your Facebook messages with Adrian Fox." He slid a printout across the desk. It was a screenshot of my Facebook Messenger conversation with Adrian, going back 3 months. Seeing it printed out like evidence in a trial made my stomach churn. "How did you get these?" "You left your laptop open. I printed them Wednesday morning after you left for work." I scanned the messages, seeing them through Simon's eyes for the first time. The casual flirting that I'd told myself was just friendliness. The complaints about Simon being predictable and boring. The message where I'd said I sometimes wondered what would have happened if Adrian and I had stayed together. These are private conversations. Between my wife and another man, a man she's clearly been having an emotional affair with. "It's not an affair, it's just talking." "Read this one," Simon said, pointing to a message from 2 weeks ago. "Read it out loud." I looked at the message he was indicating. I'd written, "I keep thinking about that night we spent talking until sunrise in your dorm room. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd given it a real shot? That's just nostalgia." Read Adrian's response. Adrian had written back, "All the time. Maybe we'll get a chance to find out someday." "And your response to that?" I read my own words. "Maybe we will. Life has a funny way of giving us second chances." The silence in the room was deafening. Even I could see how damning it looked, printed out in black and white. "That doesn't mean anything," I said weakly. "Doesn't it?" Simon pulled out another paper. "This is a receipt from the Marriott downtown. Adrian's receipt from Tuesday night." I looked at the receipt, confused. "So?" "Look at the dates, Eudora. He checked in Tuesday afternoon and checked out Wednesday morning. He had a room the entire time." My blood went cold. "That's impossible. He said the hotel was booked. He lied, and you believed him because you wanted to believe him. Maybe there was a mix-up." "There was no mix-up." Simon pulled out his phone. "I called the hotel Wednesday morning. They had availability all week. Adrian Fox had a confirmed reservation that he never cancelled." The room was spinning. But why would he lie? Because he wanted to sleep with my wife, and he knew exactly how to manipulate her into letting him. "We didn't sleep together. We just slept in the same bed." "Right, like this picture shows." Simon slid another paper across the desk. It was a printout of a A photo I didn't remember taking. It showed Adrian and me in bed, both asleep. I was curled toward him, my hand on his chest, his arm around my shoulders. Where did you get this? Adrian posted it on his Instagram story Wednesday morning. He deleted it after an hour, but I screenshot it first. I stared at the photo in horror. I didn't remember moving toward Adrian in my sleep, didn't remember him putting his arm around me. But there it was, clear evidence that we hadn't stayed on our respective sides of the bed. This is just people move in their sleep. It doesn't mean anything happened. It means you were cuddling with another man while your husband slept alone in his office. I was unconscious. I can't control what I do in my sleep. But you could control where you slept, and you chose to sleep with him instead of coming to find me. Eli leaned forward. Eudora, I need you to understand the legal implications here. In Texas, adultery doesn't require sexual intercourse. It just requires intimate contact with someone other than your spouse. But I didn't choose to have intimate contact. I was asleep. You chose to put yourself in a position where intimate contact was possible, Simon said. You chose to prioritize his comfort over our marriage. I felt tears starting to fall. Simon, please, I made a mistake, okay? I should have made him sleep on the couch or find another hotel, but I never intended for any of this to happen. Intention doesn't matter, he said quietly. Impact matters, and the impact is that you've destroyed our marriage. One mistake doesn't have to destroy everything. It wasn't one mistake, Eudora. It was a series of choices, reconnecting with Adrian behind my back, messaging him for months, inviting him into our home, putting him in our bed, cuddling with him while I slept alone, and then, after all of that, refusing to acknowledge that any of it was wrong. He pulled out one final paper, Lila's drawing from school. This is what your choices have done to our daughter. She drew her family with her mother sleeping with another man, while her father cried alone in another room. She doesn't understand what she drew. She understands that her family is broken. She understands that Daddy is sad, and Mommy chose Uncle Adrian over him. I was sobbing now, the full weight of what I'd done finally hitting me. Simon, please, I love you. I love our family. I'll do anything to fix this. Will you? Will you cut all contact with Adrian? Yes. Will you go to marriage counseling? Yes. Will you acknowledge publicly that you had an emotional affair and that you betrayed our marriage? I hesitated. The word affair still felt too strong, too loaded with implications I wasn't ready to accept. I can acknowledge that I made poor choices. That's not what I asked. The room was silent except for my crying. Simon and Eli watched me, waiting for an answer I couldn't give. I need time to think, I said finally. Simon closed the manila folder. You've had 4 days to think. The fact that you still can't admit what you did tells me everything I need to know. He stood up and Eli followed suit. I'm filing for separation on Monday, Simon said. I'm seeking full custody of Lila, and I'm going to fight for this house, since you've made it clear you'd rather share it with other men than preserve it as our family home. Simon, no. I'll have my things moved out by next weekend. You can have the house, Eudora. You can have your freedom to pursue whatever relationship you want with Adrian or anyone else. But you can't have our daughter, and you can't have me. He walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I did love you. I loved you enough to forgive almost anything. But I can't forgive you refusing to admit you did anything wrong. I can't forgive you being more concerned with protecting your ego than protecting our family. Daddy, Lila's voice came from the hallway. She appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears. Are you and Mommy getting divorced? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Simon knelt down and pulled our daughter into his arms. Mommy and I are having some problems, sweetheart, but no matter what happens, we both love you very much. But you don't love each other anymore. Simon looked at me over Lila's head. Sometimes love isn't enough, baby. Sometimes people make choices that hurt each other too much to fix. Lila looked at me with her father's grey eyes. Mummy, why did you make Daddy so sad? It was the same question she'd asked at the restaurant, but this time I had an answer. Because I made some very bad choices, sweetheart, and now Daddy doesn't trust me anymore. Can't you say sorry? I did say sorry, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Lila started crying harder, and Simon picked her up. I think you should go now, he said to me. I drove home in a daze, the manila folder of evidence sitting on my passenger seat like a bomb. Everything Simon had shown me painted a picture I didn't want to see. A picture of a woman who had emotionally cheated on her husband and then refused to take responsibility for it. But even faced with all that evidence, part of me still felt like I was being punished too harshly for showing kindness to a friend. That night, I sat in my empty house and called Adrian. Eudora, is everything okay? Did you lie to me about the hotel? There was a long pause. What do you mean? Simon has your hotel receipt, Adrian. You had a room Tuesday night. You were never stranded. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, yes, I had a room, but I wanted to see you and I thought this might be my only chance. So you lied to me. You manipulated me into letting you stay. I didn't manipulate you. I gave you an opportunity to spend time with me, and you took it. Nobody forced you to say yes. But I said yes because I thought you needed help. And part of you said yes because you wanted me there. Don't pretend you didn't. The truth of that statement hit me like a physical blow. He was right. Some part of me had been excited about the opportunity to spend time with Adrian, to recapture something from our past. My marriage is over, I said. I'm sorry to hear that, but maybe it's for the best. You weren't happy, Eudora. You told me that yourself. I told you Simon was predictable. I didn't say I wanted a divorce. Didn't you? Because all those messages we exchanged sure sounded like a woman who was ready for something new. I hung up on him and threw my phone across the room. Outside, it started to rain, and I sat in my living room listening to the water hit the windows and wondering how I'd managed to destroy everything I'd claimed to love most. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.